The palace guards escaped. The human remained brave before the queen. Light spilled through the high, tall windows, casting long shadows across the polished walls. The palace was enormous. Every corner seemed taller than the tallest human building he had ever seen. Towers reached into the sky, and the walls glimmered with colors he had never seen before. Even the floors reflected light in a way that made him feel like he was walking on water. He took a deep breath and kept moving. His mission was simple but dangerous. He had come to speak with the queen of this alien race. Humans had never met them closely before, and some said humans were too weak to be trusted or respected. Ethan wanted to prove them wrong. He was not a soldier trained for war, but he had courage, quick thinking, and a calm mind. That might be enough. As he walked down the long hall, he noticed that the palace was unusually quiet. There were no guards at the doors. He had expected to see rows of alien warriors watching him closely. He had expected questions, maybe tests, maybe even threats. But the hall was empty. The silence made him uneasy, yet he kept walking. Then he saw it. A corridor opened ahead, and it was filled with movement. But it was not soldiers moving to meet him. The palace guards were leaving. One by one, they quietly slipped through side doors and vanished into the walls of the enormous palace. Ethan froze for a moment. He had read about the aliens' loyalty to their queen, but somehow, fear had made them run. Ethan's heart beat faster, but he did not move back. He kept walking toward the throne room. He felt the weight of the palace around him, and yet he felt a strange calm inside. There was a lesson he had learned long ago. When everyone else runs, sometimes the person who stays is the one who wins. He reminded himself of that lesson now. The doors of the throne room were massive. They were carved with symbols that glowed faintly, moving slightly as if alive. Ethan pushed them open and stepped inside. The room was breathtaking. Pillars stretched up into shadows he could not see. The ceiling was high and arched like the sky itself. Colors shifted across the walls, and at the far end of the room sat the queen. Queen Lyria looked different from anything Ethan had imagined. She was tall, taller than any human, with skin that shimmered like metal under sunlight. Her eyes were large and bright, reflecting the colors of the room around her. Her hair, or the long shapes that flowed from her head, moved slightly even though the air was still. She sat on her throne as if she owned the whole universe. Ethan stopped a few steps away. He did not kneel, he did not lower his eyes. He bowed slightly, a gesture of respect he knew would be understood. The queen's gaze fell on him immediately. Her eyes were curious, like a scientist examining a strange new creature. She said nothing at first, just watched him. The silence stretched. Ethan felt the tension pressing on him, but he did not speak. He waited. He knew the first words he said would matter. If he sounded weak, she might dismiss him. If he sounded arrogant, she might attack him. He chose a simple approach. "I am Ethan Parker," he said. "I come from Earth. I am here to speak with you, Queen." For a moment, nothing happened. Then a soft sound came from her throat. It was not laughter, not exactly, but it sounded close. Curiosity mixed with amusement. Ethan stayed still. He did not flinch. "Most humans would have run the moment the guards left," she said. Her voice was calm but carried power. "Why do you stay?" Ethan thought about it. "Because running does not solve anything," he said simply. "I want to speak, I want to understand. And I will not leave until I have tried." The queen's eyes narrowed slightly. Ethan felt a small thrill of victory. He had passed the first test. She tilted her head, studying him. Her body was still, but her mind seemed to move quickly. Ethan could feel it, the presence of a mind sharper than most humans he had met. "You are brave," she said finally, "or foolish, perhaps both, but you are not like the others." Ethan allowed himself a small nod. "I do not claim to be anything special," he said. "But I know humans can do things others cannot imagine." The queen studied him again. Ethan took the moment to look around the throne room. It was more than a room, it was a place of power. Symbols glowed along the walls, floating shapes drifted in the air, and the floor beneath him seemed almost alive. He realized that one wrong step could mean danger, yet he did not panic. He had faced danger before, and he knew how to stay calm. Suddenly, a soft noise came from behind him. He turned slightly and saw one of the palace doors creak. He expected a guard to appear, maybe an attacker, but no one came. Only the shadows seemed to move, shifting across the walls like living creatures. The guards had truly left. He was alone with the queen. Ethan felt his pulse quicken, but he did not show fear. He stepped forward a little, keeping his movements smooth and deliberate. "Queen Lyria," he said, I do not wish to disrespect you. I only wish to speak and to learn. I want to show that humans are more than what others believe. The queen leaned slightly forward. Her eyes narrowed, and Ethan felt a sudden pressure in the air. It was not just curiosity anymore. It was a test. He could almost feel the weight of her mind probing him, measuring his thoughts, his courage, his truth. You speak boldly, she said. And yet you are alone, the guards are gone. What makes you think you can survive here? Ethan smiled faintly. Because I do not intend to survive alone, he said. I intend to understand, to help if I can, and to earn respect. That is worth more than survival. The queen made a soft sound again. Ethan could not tell if it was laughter or disapproval. Yet something in her eyes changed. She leaned back slightly, studying him now with less caution and more curiosity. He felt a small spark of hope. You are unusual, she said. Most humans run from power or from fear. You do not. I am not most humans, Ethan said simply. And I know that fear is easy. Courage is harder, but courage matters more. The queen did not speak for a long moment. Ethan stayed still, keeping his eyes on hers. He felt no urge to flee, no desire to hide. He realized something important. The queen respected strength, but she respected honesty even more. Finally, she spoke. Very well, she said. You will stay. For now, you will speak with me. But know this, the palace is full of dangers and the guards are gone. If you fail, you will be alone. Ethan nodded. I understand, he said, but I do not fear being alone. I fear missing the chance to do what is right. The queen studied him a moment longer, then waved a hand. The floating shapes in the room shifted slightly, and the light changed. It was a subtle signal, but Ethan understood it. He was allowed to stay. He took another step forward, keeping his posture calm and his voice steady. Then let us speak, he said. I am ready. The queen's lips moved, forming words he could barely understand at first, but then the meaning became clear. She wanted to test him. She wanted to see if he could handle the palace, its mysteries, and the danger that had made all the other humans and alien guards run. Ethan knew he was beginning something much bigger than himself. He was not just a visitor anymore. He was a participant in the palace's story, standing alone against fear, danger, and the unknown. And for the first time, he felt truly alive. He took a deep breath and stepped fully into the center of the throne room. The queen's eyes followed him, curious and sharp. The palace was quiet, but Ethan felt the heartbeat of the building, the pulse of power that surrounded them both. He did not flinch. He did not hesitate. He was human, and he would remain brave. Ethan Parker stood in the center of the throne room, his eyes on Queen Lyria. The air felt heavier now, filled with tension he could almost touch. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the palace, a faint vibration that seemed to come from the walls themselves. He knew that every step, every word could be a test. The queen's gaze was sharp, almost like it could see inside his mind. Tell me about your world, she said finally, her voice calm but carrying authority. What drives humans? Why do you travel across the stars? Ethan straightened. He had prepared for questions like this, but now that they came, he felt the weight of the moment. Humans explore because we are curious, he said. We want to know what is out there. We want to understand other worlds, other creatures. We travel not for war, but for knowledge. And sometimes we travel to help others. The queen tilted her head. Help others, she asked. Even when it is dangerous? Ethan nodded. Yes, he said. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to act even when you are afraid. That is what humans do. Queen Lyria did not move. She studied him with eyes that seemed to pierce his thoughts. Ethan felt as if she were weighing his words, measuring every truth and every lie. He held her gaze without flinching. You speak boldly, she said at last. Most creatures would bow or beg for mercy, yet you stand and speak as if you belong here. I belong where I choose to belong, Ethan replied calmly. I respect you, Queen, I respect your power, but I do not fear it. The queen's lips curved slightly, not quite a smile, more like curiosity flickering across her face. Very well, she said. Then we will see if your courage is more than words. You will face the palace and its challenges. Many have failed. They fled or they were trapped. You are alone here, human. Ethan felt a thrill of fear, but it did not paralyze him. I understand, he said, and I accept the challenge. A soft sound echoed through the throne room. Shapes of light began to float around them, twisting and spinning in patterns he could not fully follow. The queen waved her hand, and the palace seemed to come alive. Doors that had been closed moved slightly, floors shifted, and the air hummed with energy. It was as if the building itself was testing him. Move forward, the queen said. Show me your mind, show me your courage. Survive what this palace can throw at you. Ethan took a slow step forward. The floor beneath him shifted slightly, and a section of it slid open, revealing a narrow pit. He stopped, measuring the distance, and then leapt carefully across it. He landed on the other side without incident. The Queen's eyes followed him. She did not speak, but Ethan could feel her focus, her attention on every detail. He realized that she was testing more than his body. She was testing his mind, his thinking, his judgment, his ability to stay calm under pressure. Most humans would panic, she said softly, almost to herself. Yet you move with purpose. Ethan kept walking. The walls of the palace shifted as he passed. Glowing symbols appeared and disappeared. Some doors that had been closed opened slightly, only to close again before he could reach them. He noticed a faint pattern, a rhythm to the changes. Slowly, he began to predict the movement. He stepped carefully, timing each motion with the subtle shifts of the palace. After a few minutes, the Queen spoke again. "You are clever," she said, "but cleverness alone will not be enough. You must show judgment. You must show compassion." Ethan paused. "Compassion?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Even in danger, even when alone, you must make choices that do not harm the innocent. You must prove that humans are capable of balance, not only strength." He nodded. "I understand," he said. "Strength without care is meaningless. Courage without thought is dangerous." The Queen did not reply. She simply observed as he moved forward. Ethan noticed that the walls ahead formed a corridor filled with moving lights. The lights were bright, almost blinding, but he could see faint outlines of doors and passages behind them. He realized that he could not rush. If he did, he might step into danger. Ethan slowed his pace, letting his eyes adjust. He remembered the lessons of his training on Earth. Observe first, act second. Patience often saved more lives than speed. He moved with care, watching the patterns of the lights. When a gap appeared, he stepped through it. When a light swung close, he ducked. Each motion required concentration, but he did not hesitate. As he progressed, he began to hear faint noises. They were subtle at first, a whisper of movement behind a door, a shadow shifting across the wall. He knew these were part of the Queen's test. Perhaps the palace was trying to scare him. Perhaps it was testing his fear. He kept walking, his steps steady, his breathing calm. Then a section of the floor in front of him lifted suddenly. A sharp edge glinted in the light. Ethan froze for a heartbeat and then jumped sideways. The edge clanged as it struck the wall, missing him by inches. He felt a surge of adrenaline, but he kept calm. This was not panic, this was focus. He had faced danger before, and he could do so again. The Queen spoke again, her voice echoing across the corridor. "You are not afraid, human. That is unusual. Most creatures flee or cry. You face danger and continue forward." Ethan stopped for a moment and replied, "Fear is natural. Courage is choice. I choose to continue." The corridor ended at a small chamber. Inside, a soft light illuminated a pool of water. Shapes moved beneath the surface, reflecting the colors of the walls. Ethan stepped inside cautiously. He felt the energy of the palace here more strongly. The air was thick, almost heavy. He could feel the Queen's eyes on him even though she was not in the room. Suddenly, the water began to ripple and shapes rose from it. They were creatures of the palace, perhaps constructs of energy or living beings. They moved toward him, silent and fast. Ethan did not panic. He looked around and noticed patterns in their movement. He realized they would strike if he moved carelessly. He thought quickly. He did not fight. He moved with care, timing his steps with the creature's motion. They swirled around him, and he passed through without being touched. When he reached the far side of the chamber, they disappeared back into the pool. The Queen's voice came again, soft and approving. "You understand, strength is not only force, it is wisdom. You have learned quickly." Ethan nodded, feeling a quiet pride. He had faced danger, remained calm, and passed another test. Yet he knew this was only the beginning. The palace was vast, and the Queen's tests were far from over. He walked out of the chamber into another hallway. The walls here were smooth and curved, almost organic in shape. Strange symbols glowed faintly. Ethan realized the palace seemed alive, reacting to his presence. He had to stay alert at all times. One mistake could be fatal. As he moved forward, he noticed a door open slightly to his left. Inside, he saw objects that seemed familiar, even though they were alien. Tools, machines, containers. Perhaps these were remnants of the guards who had fled. He peeked inside and saw no threat. Carefully, he stepped inside to examine the objects. Among them, he found a small device. He picked it up and turned it over in his hands. It seemed like a weapon, but it also had markings that suggested it could do more than harm. He realized it might be useful. He tucked it into his belt, keeping it close. He had learned something important. In the palace, knowledge and tools could be as important as strength. Ethan continued down the hallway. The palace seemed quieter now, almost like it was observing him silently. He thought about the queen's words, judgment, compassion, strength, wisdom. She was testing not only his courage, but his character. Hours could have passed, or only minutes. Time felt strange in the palace. Shadows moved in ways that made no sense. Lights shifted unpredictably, yet Ethan did not lose focus. He knew that the key to surviving this test was calmness, observation, and courage. Finally, he reached another chamber. This one was larger, and at its center was a pedestal. On it rested an object that glowed softly. Ethan approached carefully. He knew this was part of the test, but he did not know exactly what it meant. He reached out and touched the object. Immediately, he felt a pulse of energy run through him. The lights in the room shifted, forming shapes that looked like the queen herself. Ethan realized this was a test of his mind as much as his body. He had to remain calm, to understand the pulse, and not to panic. He focused, breathing slowly, letting his mind adjust. The energy seemed to recognize his courage. The shapes formed less chaotic patterns. Slowly, the pulse subsided. Ethan stood, unharmed, holding the object carefully. He had passed another test, proving his intelligence, courage, and calmness under pressure. From somewhere deep in the palace, the queen's voice echoed softly, approving and curious. "You are human," she said. "You are brave, clever, and steady. I am beginning to understand you." Perhaps humans are not as weak as many believe. Ethan felt a quiet satisfaction. He had faced danger, confusion, and fear, and he had not faltered. He knew the queen would continue to test him, but he also knew that he was earning her respect. One step at a time, he was showing that humans could stand alone, even in a palace that seemed alive with power and danger. He took a deep breath and prepared to continue. The queen's tests were not over, but neither was his courage. And for the first time, he realized something important. The palace might be dangerous, but he was ready to meet that danger head-on because he was human, and humans could be fearless when it mattered. Ethan Parker stood in the chamber, holding the glowing object. The pulse of energy had subsided, but the palace still felt alive around him. Shadows moved along the walls, and soft lights floated in the air like restless spirits. He knew he was not safe, not yet. The queen had tests for him still, and he had to be alert. Queen Lyria appeared at the far end of the room. She had not moved in the way humans moved. She seemed to appear, almost gliding forward silently. Her eyes were sharp, studying him closely. Ethan did not step back. He had learned that moving nervously would only show fear, and fear was dangerous in this palace. "You have passed many tests so far," the queen said. "But there is more. The palace is only part of the danger. Outside it, enemies wait. They want my throne, and the palace guards abandoned me. They feared for themselves. You are the only human brave enough to remain." Ethan felt a chill. The queen's words made the danger real. He had thought the palace itself was the main threat, but now he realized it was more than that. Other aliens, powerful ones, were plotting against her, and he was standing in the middle of it. "Enemies?" Ethan asked. "How many? What kind of danger?" The queen's lips curved slightly, but it was not a smile. "Many factions seek to control this planet. Some want to overthrow me. Others wish to capture me or force me to step down. They have spies and assassins everywhere. Even the palace guards fled because they feared these enemies. You human are alone here with me." Ethan took a deep breath. He had faced danger before, but this was different. It was not a test he could predict with patterns or shapes. It was real, alive, and deadly. Yet he felt something stir inside him. Fear was there, yes, but so was determination. He could not run. He would not run. "I will help you," he said simply. "Even if I am alone, I will not leave." Queen Lyria studied him again. Ethan could feel the weight of her mind on him. She was not only testing his courage now, she was weighing his loyalty, his ability to act under real danger. "You are brave, human," she said. "But bravery alone will not save you. You must think, plan, and act carefully. The palace can protect you to some extent, but beyond it there are traps, weapons, and those who wish to harm me. You must be clever." Ethan nodded. He understood. Bravery was only useful when combined with thinking. Fear could be controlled with calm, and danger could be managed with careful observation. He felt the weight of responsibility, but he did not flinch. The queen gestured toward a large map in the center of the room. It floated in the air, glowing softly. Lines moved across it, showing positions, routes, and energy flows within the palace and beyond. Ethan approached it cautiously. He had never seen anything like it. "This shows my enemies," the queen explained. "Some are close to the palace, waiting for weakness. Some are far, watching, planning, and the palace itself has dangers. Traps remain even after the guards left. You must be careful in every step you take." Ethan studied the map. He noticed patterns and routes he could use. He realized that knowledge would be as important as courage. He could not just react, he had to anticipate. He memorized the paths and noted where danger was most likely. "Very well," he said finally. "I understand. I will help you and I will watch every path. I will make sure no enemy surprises us." The queen nodded almost approvingly. "Good. You have courage, intelligence, and patience. You are unusual for a human. Perhaps this is why you are still standing while others fled, but you will need more than that. You must act, and you must act wisely." Ethan felt a surge of energy. He had not expected praise from a queen, especially not one from a race that viewed humans as weak. He knew that he had to earn her trust fully, not just her curiosity. That meant taking action, not only thinking. "Where should we start?" he asked. "There are spies inside the palace," the queen said. "They hide in shadows, in walls, even in rooms that seem empty. Some are loyal to my enemies, others are mercenaries. You must identify them and stop them if necessary. Even small mistakes can be deadly." Ethan's mind worked quickly. He needed a strategy. First, he had to understand the palace fully, not only the layout but also the dangers hidden in every corner. He would need to observe, remember, and predict. Second, he needed tools. The palace might have weapons, traps, or devices that could help him if he knew how to use them. He moved slowly through the room, noting hidden panels, faint lights that blinked in irregular patterns, and doors that opened only slightly before closing. He realized that some doors might hide enemies or traps. He tested each carefully, listening for subtle sounds. His human senses were sharp in comparison to the alien ones, which relied more on sight and energy. After several minutes, he found a small chamber. Inside were devices that looked like they could detect movement or alert the queen to danger. He studied them carefully, learning how they worked. If he could master these, he could give the queen an advantage. He even found a small weapon, light but powerful, and tucked it into his belt. As he worked, he heard a faint whisper from the shadows. He froze. His heart beat faster, but he did not panic. A figure stepped out slowly. It was not human. It was a creature of the palace, smaller than the queen but dangerous in appearance. Its eyes glowed faintly and its hands ended in sharp claws. Ethan held his breath. He remembered the lessons from earlier tests. Patience and calm could be more powerful than force. He did not attack immediately. He waited, observing the creature. It moved slowly, almost cautiously, as if testing him in return. Finally, Ethan spoke softly. "I mean no harm," he said. "I am here to protect the queen." The creature paused, tilting its head. Then it made a sound almost like a click and retreated into the shadows. Ethan realized it had tested him like the palace itself had. He had passed. He moved on carefully, now even more alert. He noticed faint tracks on the floor, almost invisible. He followed them slowly. They led him to a small room, almost hidden behind a wall. Inside, he found evidence of spies, documents, devices, and plans showing routes into the palace. Some were small, almost insignificant, but others could be deadly. Ethan gathered what he could, thinking quickly. He needed to show the queen that he could act, not just observe. He took the plans back to the main chamber and presented them. The queen looked at them closely. "Impressive," she said. "You understand the threats. You see what others cannot. Perhaps humans are more capable than I believed." Ethan nodded. "I will continue," he said. "I will protect you and learn everything I can. I will not fail." The queen studied him for a long moment. "You are human," she said softly. "You are brave, clever, and willing to act. You have earned my trust more than any other visitor, but remember, this is only the beginning. Danger is near, and the palace is only part of the challenge. You must remain vigilant." Ethan felt the weight of her words, but he did not shrink. He was ready. He had survived tests, faced dangers, and learned the palace. Now he would face real threats, not illusions or puzzles. He knew it would be difficult, but he also knew he was capable. He spent the rest of the day moving through the palace carefully. He checked rooms, corridors, and passages. He observed faint signals of energy that might indicate traps or surveillance. He memorized the layout and noted where danger was greatest. By nightfall, he returned to the queen's chamber. She was seated calmly, as if she had been waiting for him. "You have done well," she said. "You have learned quickly. Now I will explain the full danger we face. You must be ready to act, for enemies will come soon, and the palace alone cannot protect us." Ethan nodded. He felt a mixture of excitement and determination. He was ready. He was human, and humans could face danger with courage and intelligence. He would not falter. Queen Lyria's eyes glowed softly in the dim light. "Tomorrow," she said, "you will see the first true test. The enemies outside will attempt to enter the palace. You must be prepared. You must be ready to defend me alone if necessary. The palace guards have fled, but you have not. That is why I chose you, human." Ethan felt a surge of resolve. He knew the danger was real, but so was his courage. He had survived the palace's tests, learned its secrets, and gained the queen's respect. Now he would face the real challenge, and he would not fail. He spent the rest of the night preparing. He memorized the enemy routes from the plans, adjusted traps where he could, and positioned the tools and devices he had found. He reviewed his observations, planning for every possible scenario. He could not predict everything, but he could be ready for most of it. As the palace lights dimmed, Ethan stood in the center of the throne room. The queen watched him silently, her gaze full of curiosity and approval. He felt the weight of responsibility, but also the strength of determination. He was human, and humans could stand alone against fear and danger. Tomorrow would bring the first true challenge. But tonight he was ready. The next morning the palace was quiet, but Ethan Parker knew it would not stay that way. He had spent the night preparing. He had memorized every corridor, every door, every shadow where danger could hide. The glowing object he had found earlier was secured on his belt, and the small alien device he had discovered the day before hummed softly in his hand. Queen Lyria stood at the throne, her tall form calm and regal. Her eyes followed Ethan as he moved through the room, inspecting every corner. The palace had shifted slightly overnight, as if it was alive and aware of the danger approaching. Ethan felt a thrill of tension. This was it, the first true test. "You are ready, human," the queen said softly. "Enemies will come soon. You must protect me. You must act wisely. The palace guards have abandoned me, but you have not. This is why you are here." Ethan nodded. "I am ready," he said simply. "I will not fail." The palace walls pulsed slightly as if in response. Ethan felt the energy in the air intensify. Then he heard it, a faint sound, almost imperceptible at first. A soft hum that grew louder, footsteps or perhaps something heavier approaching the palace. He moved to the nearest corridor, checking for signs of intrusion. The first enemy appeared silently. A figure emerged from a side door, its movements quick and precise. It was smaller than Ethan expected, but heavily armored. It carried a weapon that glowed faintly, similar to the device he had found. Ethan took a deep breath, remembering all the tests he had passed before. Patience and observation would be key. The figure moved toward the queen's chamber. Ethan stepped forward, placing himself in its path. "Stop," he said firmly. The figure paused, tilting its head. It did not speak. Its eyes glowed faintly under the helmet. Ethan remembered the device he had in his hand. He activated it, and a soft wave of energy shot forward, creating a barrier between him and the enemy. The figure tried to push through, but the energy pulse held it back. Ethan moved carefully, keeping the device between them, ready for anything. The enemy tried to strike him, swinging a glowing weapon. Ethan dodged quickly, rolling to the side. He knew brute strength alone would not work. He had to think, use his mind and his instincts. He aimed the device carefully, sending small pulses of energy that disrupted the enemy's movements. The figure faltered, unsure how to continue. Queen Lyria watched silently, her eyes sharp. Ethan knew she was observing not only his courage but his strategy. He did not panic. He stayed calm, analyzing every movement, predicting what the enemy would do next. Finally, with a precise movement, Ethan sent a stronger pulse from the device. It knocked the weapon from the enemy's hand and sent the figure staggering backward. Ethan did not give it a chance to recover. He moved forward, using his speed and timing to push it away from the chamber doors. The figure stumbled and fell, incapacitated but alive. Ethan kept a careful watch, making sure it could not attack again. The palace was quiet again, but Ethan knew it was only temporary. More enemies would come. He moved quickly through the corridors, checking every door and passage. The glowing symbols on the walls shifted, warning him of movement nearby. He had learned to read them. Soon, more figures appeared. They were larger, faster, and more coordinated. Ethan realized they had been waiting for him to engage the first intruder. He had to act quickly. He activated the device again, creating barriers and pulses of energy that slowed their advance. He moved strategically, leading them into corridors where he could control the fight. One enemy tried to flank him from behind, but Ethan had anticipated it. He spun around, dodging the attack and using the device to block its weapon. Another enemy approached from the left. He kicked a nearby wall panel, sending a burst of energy from the palace itself, knocking the attacker off balance. Ethan smiled faintly. He had learned to use the palace as an ally, understanding its movements and energy flows. The queen remained on her throne, observing. She did not intervene, but her presence gave him strength. Ethan knew that if he could hold the enemies long enough, she would see his skill, his courage, and his intelligence. He was proving that humans could face dangers alone and succeed. The fight continued. Ethan moved through the palace like a shadow, using speed, observation, and his human ingenuity to outmaneuver the enemies. He did not rely solely on the device. He used his hands, his feet, and even his environment. He kicked panels, dodged beams of energy, and lured enemies into corners where they could not move effectively. Despite the danger, Ethan remained calm. He focused on the patterns of his opponents, predicting their attacks and adapting. One by one, he incapacitated them, always careful to avoid unnecessary harm. He knew the queen valued not only strength but judgment. Mercy and careful thinking were part of courage in her eyes. Hours seemed to pass, though Ethan knew it could only be minutes. The palace tested him at every turn. Traps activated, lights shifted, and hidden doors opened. He moved through each obstacle with precision, using his knowledge of the palace and his quick thinking. He felt alive in a way he never had before. Finally, he reached the central hall where the queen had been. She stood as the last group of enemies approached, her eyes sharp and commanding. Ethan positioned himself between her and the intruders, ready to defend. The enemies hesitated as they saw him. He stood firm, calm, and unafraid. He raised the device slightly, sending a pulse that warned them not to advance. One of the larger enemies stepped forward aggressively. Ethan waited, studying its movements, then acted. He sidestepped its first strike, using its momentum to push it forward into a side corridor. Another enemy rushed him from the other side, and he blocked with the device, sending a pulse that knocked it backward. The queen's eyes widened slightly. She had not expected humans to act with such skill and courage. Ethan continued to fight strategically, using every advantage he had. He moved quickly, dodging, blocking, and guiding enemies into traps or isolated areas. His training, instincts, and intelligence worked together. He realized he was not just defending the queen, he was using the palace itself as a weapon. Finally, after what felt like hours, the last enemy fell. Ethan stood in the hall, breathing heavily but unhurt. The palace was silent again. He looked at the queen. She was watching him closely, her expression unreadable but thoughtful. "You have done well, human," she said softly. "You have proven courage, intelligence, and strength. You have defended me when others could not. The palace guards have fled, but you have not. You are worthy of trust." Ethan bowed slightly, keeping his posture calm. "I only did what was necessary," he said. "I will continue to protect you. I will not fail." The queen studied him for a long moment, then she nodded. "You are human," she said, "and humans are not weak. You have shown that even one human alone can stand against many. Perhaps this is why I have chosen you." Ethan felt a quiet pride, but he did not relax completely. He knew the danger was not over. The enemies outside the palace would return, and there would be more tests. But he had survived the first real attack. He had proven that humans could face danger alone, with courage, intelligence, and skill. He moved through the palace again, checking for any remaining threats. He found none. Every corridor was silent, every door secure. The glowing symbols on the walls returned to their calm state, and the palace seemed to breathe more gently. Ethan returned to the queen's chamber. She was seated calmly, her tall form relaxed now but still commanding. "You have done more than survive," she said. "You have earned respect. The palace guards will return, and they will see that one human can do what many fear. You have changed their view of humans." Ethan nodded. "I only hope to continue," he said. "There will be more danger, I know, but I will not back down. I will protect you and this palace." Queen Lyria's eyes softened slightly. You are brave, human, perhaps braver than any human I have met. You have intelligence, courage, and patience. These are qualities that many creatures lack. You have proven that even alone, humans can be powerful and capable. Ethan felt a surge of determination. He had faced the first attack and survived. He had protected the queen, outsmarted the enemies, and used the palace itself to his advantage. He knew this was only the beginning, but he also knew one important truth. Humans could rise to any challenge if they stayed calm, thought clearly, and acted bravely. He stood silently, looking at the queen. The palace was quiet again, but Ethan could feel the pulse of energy still moving through the walls. It was alive, powerful, and dangerous. But he was ready. He had faced the first real test and emerged victorious. Tomorrow would bring new dangers, new enemies, and new challenges. But Ethan Parker was ready. He was human, and humans could stand alone against fear, danger, and even armies. He would continue to fight, continue to protect, and continue to prove that bravery, intelligence, and courage were human qualities that no one could underestimate. The sun had barely risen over the palace when Ethan Parker stood in the central hall, alert and ready. The attacks from the previous day had been only the beginning, he knew. Outside the palace walls, enemies were gathering. Spies and soldiers from rival factions were moving closer, planning to take the queen and her throne. The palace guards, who had once been tasked with protection, had fled. It was up to him, a single human, to defend the queen and the palace. Queen Lyria appeared beside him. Her tall figure was calm, her eyes glowing with intelligence and authority. "The enemy approaches," she said. "You have done well, human, but today will test you as never before. Many will come. You must stand firm, not only for me, but for the future of this palace and your species." Ethan nodded. He felt a surge of determination. He had trained himself for danger, but this was unlike anything he had faced before. It was not a test or a puzzle. This was real life and death. He checked his equipment, secured the glowing device at his belt, and reviewed the tools and weapons he had found the day before. He was ready. The first group of attackers arrived quietly, slipping through the outer walls using hidden entrances that Ethan had predicted. They moved fast, but he had prepared. Using the palace's own energy system, he activated barriers and alarms that slowed the enemy's advance. He used the patterns he had learned from the previous day, leading them into corridors where he could control the fight. The attackers paused, sensing the traps. Ethan did not give them a chance. He used quick bursts of energy from the device, knocking weapons out of their hands and disorienting them. He moved swiftly, dodging attacks and guiding the enemies into positions where they could do no harm. Every action was precise. Every movement was calculated. Queen Lyria watched silently from her throne. She did not need to speak. Her presence alone gave Ethan confidence. He realized that she trusted him, and that trust gave him strength he had never felt before. Humans could survive, she seemed to say, because they were clever, brave, and adaptable. Ethan wanted to show her that was true. The enemies regrouped and launched a coordinated attack from multiple directions. Ethan was outnumbered, but he did not panic. He had learned patience, observation, and strategy. He moved quickly, using the palace layout to his advantage. He led one group into a corridor where a sudden barrier blocked their way. He triggered a trap that immobilized another. One by one, the enemies faltered, unable to predict his moves. As he fought, Ethan noticed a small group trying to reach the queen. They were faster and more dangerous than the others. He sprinted toward them, using the glowing device to create a barrier between them and the queen. One attacker lunged at him with a weapon, but Ethan sidestepped, using the attacker's momentum against them. He pushed it into a trap he had set the night before, and the figure fell, stunned and unable to continue. Another attacker rushed from the side. Ethan blocked the weapon with the device, sending a pulse that knocked the attacker backward. He grabbed a nearby panel and activated the palace's energy, creating a temporary barrier that protected both him and the queen. He could feel the palace reacting to his actions, almost as if it understood his intentions. The queen's eyes widened slightly. She had never seen a human move with such skill and courage. She realized that humans were not weak. One human alone had defended her against multiple attackers, using intelligence, speed, and courage. Ethan moved through the hall, keeping the queen safe while continuing to confront the enemies. He used every advantage he had learned from the palace itself. Doors, lights, and energy panels became tools in his hands. He anticipated the enemy's movements, predicting their attacks and countering them before they could strike. Hours seemed to pass in a blur. The enemies were persistent, but Ethan's endurance and focus never wavered. He had learned to read the palace like a map, predicting where attacks might come from and where he could create advantages. His human mind, combined with courage and observation, allowed him to survive and protect the queen. Finally, the last group of enemies fell. They were exhausted, disoriented, and defeated. Ethan stood in the center of the hall, breathing heavily but unhurt. The palace was quiet again, the energy panels returning to their calm state. He turned to the queen, who had observed everything silently. "You have done it," she said softly. "You have defended me and the palace. You have proven that even one human alone can stand against many. You have courage, intelligence, and strength. You have earned my respect." Ethan bowed slightly. "I only did what I had to," he said. "I could not allow them to reach you. I will continue to protect you if needed." The queen studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled, faintly but clearly. "Humans are not weak," she said. "You have shown that bravery and intelligence can overcome fear and numbers. You are a human worth honoring. The palace guards will return and see what one human can do. You have changed their view of your species forever." Ethan felt a surge of pride, but he did not relax completely. He knew danger could return, but he also realized that he had proven something far greater than survival. He had proven that humans could be brave, smart, and capable, even when facing impossible odds. The palace guards began to return, one by one. They were surprised to see a single human standing in the hall, victorious and unhurt. Whispers spread quickly as they realized that Ethan Parker had defended the queen alone. Many of them had fled in fear, but one human had remained brave. Their respect for humans grew in that moment. Queen Lyria addressed the returning guards. "See this human," she said, her voice strong and commanding. "See what courage, intelligence, and loyalty can accomplish. This is what humans are capable of. Let it remind you that strength is not only in numbers, but in the mind, the heart, and the spirit." Ethan stepped forward, keeping his eyes on the queen. She nodded at him. "You have earned a place here, human," she said, "not just as a visitor, but as an ally. You have shown that humans can be trusted, that they can face danger and succeed. From now on, you will stand with me, not behind me. You have proven your worth." He felt a sense of satisfaction, but also responsibility. Being recognized was not the end, it was a beginning. He had shown the queen, the palace guards, and even himself what humans could do. He had stood alone, brave and unwavering, and had succeeded where others had failed. The palace slowly returned to normal. The energy flowed calmly through the walls. The corridors and halls were quiet again, but Ethan knew that vigilance was always necessary. The galaxy was full of dangers, and the queen's enemies would not stop. Still, he felt ready. He had faced the worst and had emerged victorious. Queen Lyria walked toward him, her presence commanding but calm. "Ethan Parker," she said, "you are no longer just a human visitor. You are my ally, my protector, and my friend. You have shown what humans are capable of. Let it be known across this palace and this world that one human can stand against many and remain brave." Ethan bowed slightly. "I will continue to do my best," he said. "I will protect you, and I will show that humans are strong and courageous." The queen smiled faintly. It was a rare expression for her, soft but filled with respect. "You have done more than survive," she said. "You have changed the perception of your species. Humans are not weak. They are clever, brave, and capable. You have proven that today." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. He had come to this palace as a stranger, with no one to trust and no allies. He had faced danger, isolation, and uncertainty, yet he had remained brave, intelligent, and vigilant. He had protected the queen, outsmarted enemies, and earned respect where others had failed. The palace guards approached him cautiously, their eyes filled with a mix of awe and respect. "We underestimated humans," one of them said quietly. "This human, he is remarkable." Another nodded. "He stayed when we fled. He defended the queen alone. We should have done the same." Ethan shook his head. "I only did what needed to be done," he said. "Courage is not about being fearless. It's about acting even when you are afraid. Humans are capable because we choose to face danger and think clearly. That is all." Queen Lyria watched him silently, then raised her hand. "Let it be known," she said, her voice echoing through the halls. "Ethan Parker, human, has shown courage, intelligence, and loyalty beyond expectation. Let his actions remind us all that even one being can change the course of events when they are brave and wise." Ethan felt a quiet pride, not in himself, but in what he had achieved. He had shown that humans could stand alone against danger, think quickly, and act bravely. He had earned the Queen's trust, the respect of the palace guards, and the recognition of a species that once underestimated humans. The palace was calm again. The sun rose higher in the sky, casting light through the tall windows. Ethan Parker stood beside Queen Lyria, ready for whatever challenges might come next. He had proven himself, and in doing so, he had shown that humans could rise to any challenge, face any danger, and remain brave even when alone. For the first time, he felt that humans had earned a place in this alien world. They were not weak, not insignificant. Courage, intelligence, and loyalty could make a single human as powerful as an army, and Ethan Parker had proven it. He looked at the Queen and nodded. She returned the gesture, and for a moment the palace was filled with silent understanding. Humans were capable, and together they could face whatever dangers the galaxy might bring.